Developing tonight, a new lawsuit against teacher tenure. A group of students in New York City claiming tenure violates their constitutional guarantee to a, quote, sound basic education. This almost a month after a California judge struck down teacher tenure rules in that state. Andel Brown is a civil rights attorney and a children's advocate. Kyle Olson is founder and CEO of EAG News.org, which is a news service that's dedicated to education reform. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to have both of you here with me tonight. So there's 11 students in New York who say that they believe that they're not getting their constitutional right to an education because there are teachers who aren't teaching them, and those people are impossible to fire. In fact, the New York Board of Education says it takes approximately 830 days, or 2 years and 3 months, to get through the process of firing a bad teacher. Andel, how can that be possible?
Well, first of all, we have to acknowledge this. Putting teachers last does not mean that we're putting students first. When we look at the process that's in New York, it's to protect those that are on the front line educating our children every day. Tenure and the process that they have to go through only means that a teacher has due process and they can't be fired because of political or other reasons.
Are there not bad teachers who should be fired? I mean, is that what you're saying?
There are evaluation processes. There are ways to remove teachers that aren't performing. Before any teacher is given tenure, there's at least a 3-year period where they're evaluated and trained to see how effective they are as teachers. And if that 3 years isn't enough, it can be extended even further before they're given the tenure.
Yeah, well, we have a huge education problem on our hands, and the students themselves, 11 of them, come forward and say, I'm not getting the education that I deserve. Their parents have a union. It's called the New York Parents Union. Kyle, what do you think about this move on their part?
I think it's a good move, and unfortunately in states like California and New York, parents and students have to turn to the courts because the politicians aren't doing anything about this problem. And what this comes down to is you have the politicians putting in place these policies like tenure and seniority, where teachers are kept based on how long they've been there and not based on the job that they do. That's how they're judged. And this is a result of big labor coming into schools and putting this sort of policy in place.
You know, if you're doing a good job, Andel, you shouldn't have to worry about being fired. I mean, that's the way it works in most business organizations in this country. So what are they afraid of?
Well, what we're talking about is tenure is a way of rewarding teachers that are experienced. It's a way of protecting their interests as they move forward with administration's change.
Why not reward them with merit pay? Why not reward them with more pay?
Because
if their students do well, go ahead.
There are people in their institutions that will jeopardize the jobs of teachers whose ideas they don't like. They will jeopardize the jobs of teachers whose politics they don't like. What we're doing is we're protecting what's going into the classroom, passionate teachers that want to teach our kids.
Yeah, but if your child had a bad teacher, how would you feel if your child had a bad teacher and you said to the principal and you went and you said, you know what, here, I can document this. These kids are not learning anything in this class. And they said to you, I'm sorry, that teacher's tenure, there's no way we can get rid of that teacher. Your child is stuck for the rest of the year. What would your response be, Andel?
Number one, that's not realistic. Second of all, there are things put in place to evaluate teachers and move bad teachers out of the classroom. Yeah. We have a process in place. They're just saying we don't like it.
All right, hold on. Kyle, is that process working?
The reality is it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to move teachers out of the classroom. And so, unfortunately, a lot of cash-strapped districts will actually pay a teacher to go away and give them a letter of recommendation to go to another district where they do the same sort of thing.
Yep.
Then actually spending the money on legal fees to get rid of that person. It's a broken system. It's taking parents and students to try and fix it through the courts where politicians are not doing their job.
Yeah, I mean, there have been so many efforts to push these things through the legislature, and they've failed. Much like the IRS story, it's the same kind of thing. So now they're going to the courts to try to get some resolution. We will see how they do. Gentlemen, we got to leave it there. Thank you very much. Kyle.